Hello and welcome. My name is Patrick Toby with Equanimity Counseling and Consulting. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist here in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I work with dissociative disorders and complex PTSD, and a lot of the trauma kind of work. But I also work with couples and people trying to make changes in their life or going through difficult times in their life. So they're struggling with big emotions or negative behavior patterns that they don't like. So we get lots of kind of run of the mill stuff that we all deal with from time to time in our life, and some of the more bigger stuff that is difficult for the person going through it. Um, so today, what I wanted to do is take a few minutes and talk about affirmations. Affirmations can be a good tool, but what I found is that a lot of people don't understand affirmations very well, and they're kind of just repeating a phrase to themselves, and that's not the ideal way to use affirmations or really to understand them. So I wanted to do a little bit of a deeper dive into affirmations, what they're trying to do, and how we can actually maybe do it a little bit better so that they're more effective for people that are using them. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we're going to talk about some identity work, some ideas around how we form beliefs about ourself and our self-concept and self-esteem, and how we form those beliefs and how we get there. And that's going to translate into what we're trying to do with affirmations, which is usually trying to install a new belief, right? So I repeat that phrase over and over again, hoping that I'll believe it, that I'll convince myself that I am this new thing. And usually that comes from a negative belief, like say I believe I'm lazy, but I don't want to believe that. I want to believe that I'm a hard worker. So how do I change that? I start telling myself I'm a hard worker. I'm super hard worker. I like to do hard work, and reconstruct it and rephrase it and repeat it over and over and over again in the hopes that I'll believe it. There's some pitfalls with that, and we're going to go over why this doesn't work very well right now. So let me share my screen with you. All right. Um, so what this is showing is kind of a hierarchy of how we start to, from the ground up, how we start to build a belief system, a self concept, a concept about self. And a lot of this comes from the work of Damon Cart. You can find on YouTube. He's an excellent instructor, NLP instructor, and his whole thing is about self concept. So if you want deeper or more information on this, definitely go to him. This is kind of a nutshell because I want to get back to affirmations, but this is very much relevant to what we're trying to do with affirmations. So when we first start off with life, we're gaining experiences all over the place, all kinds of experiences, right? Everything's new. But eventually I start to hear a message maybe over and over again that um, maybe I'm hearing that I'm a hard worker. So I get all these experiences of being a hard worker, and they start to add up, right? So I get this experience. Mom tells me I'm a hard worker. Dad tells me I'm a hard worker. Teachers are telling me I'm a hard worker. Maybe I get a job when I'm in my teens and they tell me I'm a hard worker. I'm helping out grandpa and he's telling me I'm a hard worker. So I get all these experiences of hard worker, right? And they add up eventually. And eventually they become a quality. They cluster together. It's a similar theme, right? So hard worker or hardworking, you're doing a good job. You really do a lot of work there. And all these things add up into a quality. And I group them together in my mind, in my unconscious, and it becomes a quality of hard worker, right? And then eventually what happens if I keep hearing it, hey, you are a hard worker. You're such a hard worker. I've never seen such a hard worker, and you are doing such a great job. It's all about me. And I start to believe that I am that hard worker. I am a hard worker. And that belief system becomes a concept, a self concept of who I am. So when someone asks you, well, tell me about yourself. How would you describe yourself? Well, I'm a hard worker. I know that about myself. I'm also funny. I'm also kind. I also can be impulsive. We start to list these qualities that we believe about ourself, our self belief, our self concept, and all of them together is our self concept. Each individual belief could be something like hard worker or generous or kind or lazy or mean, or it doesn't have to be good positive qualities because maybe um, the quality we're looking at is lazy. right? Maybe I'm getting told I'm lazy. So I got all these different experiences of being lazy, or being told I'm lazy at least. So I've collected all those experiences, and now I have this different belief of lazy, and I believe that about myself. So it can go either way. It can be positive or negative, right? But they all form my self-concept. And then what happens is that I judge it. I judge myself according to these qualities. Now, if I'm looking at myself and I say, yeah, I believe I'm a hard worker, then it's a positive quality about myself, right? If I'm looking at lazy, though, if I'm told I'm lazy over and over again, now I start to believe that quality is who I am. I start to identify with lazy. Well, that's a negative, negative judgment, right? So hard worker is positive, so I'll feel good about myself because that's a positive statement. Where lazy usually has a negative connotation. So when I judge myself as lazy, that's usually negative. So I'm going to feel bad about myself. Hard worker, I feel good about myself. Self-esteem is a judgment about these qualities that we believe we have, right? So let's move on to the next screen here. We're going to start to look at some of these affirmation ideas. So let's say I have a belief that I've recently realized that I'm a failure. I can't do anything right. Everything I do is a failure. I've got a lost my job not too long ago. My car has a flat tire. All these things are adding up. And I've been told in my life too that, I'm never going to amount to anything. I'm a no good person. And so I have all this evidence, right? From people telling me that, or experiences of failing, feedback from teachers, all these things added up to that quality, which turned into a belief that I am a failure. And guess what my self-esteem is? Not very high, right? Because failure is very negative. So I have a poor self-esteem because I believe that I am that quality of failure based on these experiences. So then one day I wake up and I realize, that's a very negative belief system that I have about myself. I don't want to believe that about myself. I want to change that. I want to be a success. I want to be a successful person. So when I look at it from that point of view, I want to be a successful person. And I've read in a book and saw on TikTok that affirmations are a good way to change a belief. So I start to repeat to myself, I'm successful. I'm very successful. I'm going to be successful. I already am successful. And all these statements, all these repetitions of I am successful, I try to convince myself that I am successful, right? The problem, though, that we run into is that when I say that over and over again, it's kind of like putting a fresh paint on a falling down house. I can say it and put the paint on, but I know that house is falling. I know that house doesn't have the structure underneath it, and it's just a paint job. And that's kind of what we're doing to ourselves with just repetition of this phrase of I am successful. And it's not linked to anything. It's just me telling myself that I'm successful. I'm trying to gaslight myself to believe that I'm successful in spite of all this evidence, in spite of this part of me that believes that I'm a failure, right? So I'm trying to just talk my way out of it. I'm trying to gaslight myself. You're not a failure. You're successful. Ignore all those things, all that evidence, and ignore that feeling. What happens, and you probably have tested this out or can probably test it out right now, if there's a quality you're not, say you're rich right now, and if you're not rich, you're going to get a feedback in your mind almost right away. You're not rich. Same thing if I believe I'm a failure and I keep telling myself I'm a success, there's going to be feedback saying, no, you're not. You're not a success, you're a failure. So that feedback kind of neutralizes the positive statement of I am successful. And it's actually neutralizing it, overshadowing it, because there's a lot more weight on this side because there's evidence to back up the belief that I'm a failure, right? So me just saying I'm successful over and over again isn't strong enough to counter the evidence and counter the strong belief that I identify with as who I am. So it's just kind of a very weak way of kind of trying to counteract all this stuff over here. So what do we got to do? How can we make this more effective? Can't just repeat and rinse and repeat over and over again, because we can do that for years and really not have much of a change. But here's the thing. When we look at if successful is what I want to, what I want to feel, I want to feel successful. I want to believe that I am successful. I have to actually find evidence of being successful. And what people do a lot of times is they dismiss successes that they have. Like success is achieving something you wanted to achieve, right? That's a success. But people think of like, okay, I successfully went to college, or I successfully got that job. These big things, anything smaller than those big things, we just kind of dismiss. But I know most of us learned how to ride a bike, and I think most of us fell a lot learning how to ride that bike. And then when we finally got on that bike and was able to go around the block without falling, is that not a success? Was that not a good feeling at the time? That's a success. When we learned to walk as a toddler and didn't fall for a while, that was a success. When we learned to write and spell and count and math, and we're doing all these things, when we pass all those tests, when we do things that we want to set out to do and we accomplish them, those are all successes. We can all find some successful things in our life. We just have to look for them. We just have to remember what they are. So that's what we're going to try to do, is come up with some ideas, some evidence for success. And that might be broadening our criteria for what is successful, keeping in mind that successful is achieving what we want. I wanted to be able to ride that bike, and I did it. I wanted to be able to play the piano, and I did it. I wanted to be able to get a blue belt, and I did it. Whatever it is, we can find those successful stories in our life. We just have to count them. We have to give them credit, give ourselves credit. And so we find this evidence. Maybe we only start off with a few things, but eventually we're going to start to notice that we have lots of successes in our life. And now we have all this evidence that we found in our past that we've done. That's not make-believe. We're not gaslighting ourselves. We're not just saying empty words. It's based on actual experiences that we're recalling, that we're remembering, and that we're feeling that, oh yeah, I remember that was a really good feeling. Oh yeah, I remember how it felt to drive around the block. All those things are successful feelings that I did it, I accomplished it. That's given me evidence that I am successful. So now when I start to say I am successful and I start to remember these things and actually consciously try to remember these things as well, when I'm saying successful, maybe I want to say the word and remember, maybe I have a good memory of riding my bike around the block. So I'll keep going back to that memory, or maybe there's another successful one where I passed a class that I was really worrying I wasn't going to pass, and I successfully passed it. So whatever the good few memories that you have that are strong for you, that, yeah, I really did do that. I put work into it. I felt successful with it. Those are the ones you want to keep in your back pocket. So now when you're saying I am successful, and you start to recall some of these memories that are you being successful, now we have a lot more power behind our affirmation, right? So when we're saying I am successful, we have the evidence to back it up. And here's the thing about these belief systems. When I start to believe that I'm successful, or I start to count the evidence, I start to believe that I'm successful, I'm going to notice the evidence, right? So that's what I'm training myself to do, is find that evidence in my past. But then what happens is I start to find evidence in my present too. Oh yeah, there I am being successful again. I got that certificate. I passed that class. I did a good job at work. I got kudos from my boss. I got a raise, whatever it is. I got the job. Now I'm finding evidence in my current life that's adding to this belief that I'm successful. I've got all this evidence from the past that I'm successful. And now I've got this strong identity of being successful. And that's how we can build on using affirmations, but also delving into our past, starting to identify successes in our present, and starting to build this belief that I am successful, rather than trying to just lie to myself and trying to force myself to believe something that I really didn't have any evidence for. So why would I believe that over what I did have evidence for over here on the negative belief? And since I can't be a successful and a failure, and I'm focused more over here on the success part and building my evidence and finding more evidence as I go, I'm going to start to let go of this old, outdated belief system. So let me share one more thing with you on affirmations, and this is just kind of a ways to play with some language maybe. that might be useful for you as you're using affirmations. So one way also, all those negative beliefs that we're trying to counteract with a positive affirmation, like I'm not smart, I'm not hardworking, I'm not successful, I'm a failure. Those will still show up in your mind from time to time, right? Messed up and see, you can't do anything right. So when we encounter these negative thoughts, the first step is to catch them, not just ignore them or accept them as true, but, oh, there's that thought. I can't do anything right. And then we want to counter it, right? So there's a couple ways to counter it. So if I hear the thought in my mind, yeah, I don't want to go to work today. And I hear the thought, yeah, because you're lazy. I can take that. Okay, I'm lazy, but I am getting more productive. Maybe I don't want to go into work today. Maybe I hurt my back. Maybe I just need a day off, mental health day, whatever it is. But I am more and more productive every day. I'm getting more productive. So it's not a direct counter. If my words say I'm lazy and I come back and say I'm hardworking, that's just going to neutralize and there's not really going to be any progress. But if I reframe it or I twist it into but I'm getting better, then that starts to actually lead me into a better direction. I'm no longer accepting that as true, or I might acknowledge or validate, okay, well, right now I am being lazy, and the but is what negates everything that comes before it, right? So when you apologize to your spouse and you say, yeah, I'm sorry I said all those things, but you really did this thing that made me mad, the apology goes away, right? I negated the I'm sorry. Same thing here. If my mind is telling me I'm lazy, and then I add, but I'm getting more productive every day, I'm starting to negate the lazy and starting to go in a more productive direction. The other way of doing it is yet. I'm not successful. Not yet, but soon. Or I'm getting more successful every day. I'm not successful yet is a good way of kind of finishing that statement. So you might get some negative thought in your mind. You're not successful. Not yet. And then that changes it to, of course, I'm going to be in the future. I'm going to get there. And then when we look at the affirmation themselves, it's usually useful not to take that strong stand of, against, okay, I want to not be lazy. So I'm going to counter with, I am hardworking. That implies that I already am, and my brain is going to say, no, you're not. And then we have that neutralization effect. So instead, what we're going to do is say, I am becoming more productive every day. I am becoming more successful every day. Every day I am more and more productive. Every day I am more and more kind. Every day I'm more and more generous. I am becoming a smarter person every day. Those kind of becoming statements or more and more everyday statements, it's really hard to fight against it because I am working on it. I am becoming that. I am getting more and more productive every day. So it's hard for our brain to just say, no, you're not, because I am getting better and better. I am working on it. I am getting more and more productive or whatever it is. So it's a way to short circuit that neutralizing effect, that the strong I am statement and then the strong no, you're not statement. Instead, I am getting better and better. There's no way to push back on that. So our brain accepts it. And then you add that to the last couple pieces that we were talking about, where we're collecting evidence from our past, collecting evidence in our present, and maybe even visualizing some evidence in the future, starting to think about how I can be more successful, more hardworking, more intelligent, do intelligent things, read some more, study a topic that you enjoy. So we are always doing this anyway. We're always getting smarter because we're always getting experience. We're always getting more and more successes. We're accomplishing more and more every day. So we can always find these things and we can always think about how we want to get more of it in the future. Now we're getting past, present, and future going together, working for this belief that I am smart, I am hardworking, I am kind, I am generous. And it's not gaslighting ourselves. It's based on evidence in the past, based on evidence in the present, and it's planning for evidence in the future. And so as I start to say these affirmations and I start to recollect or access some of these experiences that support it, my brain is going to start to believe it. And sooner or later, I'm going to start to know that I am a successful person or a kind person or whatever it is that I'm trying to be. So I hope that's helpful for you guys to understand how affirmations work and how to buff them up so that they are stronger, so that they actually carry some weight. They're not just empty words. and you can make the changes you want to make. And if you want to supercharge this process, feel free to reach out to me, and we can work on that in some deeper ways. So thank you for listening, and have a good rest of your day.